Hey guys, I'm going to try to do my presentation in 6 minutes until my next class comes and one of my students is taping. So here's my assessment toolbox, and I did my lesson on a Andy Warhol lesson that I've done in the past. So I like to start off my presentation like showing them a picture of a piece of artwork to kind of get them excited about learning about art. Alright, so here's the introduction. So before I'll start, I would do a pre-assessment, and this is a hand signal 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I would say, alright, how much do you know about Andy Warhol already? Maybe from another year. So if they hold up a 1, that means they don't know a lot. If they hold up a 5, they could tell that means they could tell me something about it. So I try to do a quick pre-assessment before I start. Okay, and then we can do, for time's sake, there's a lot of different things in this lesson. You could do a mini compare and contrast on a different artist as an assessment thing. So what's similar? What do you notice? What's different? We have a Roy Lichtenstein piece and an Andy Warhol piece. So the kids, you can do a think, pair, share. So get into a group, have them write down, compare and contrasting things. Or you can have them write down like 3 things that they notice about the artwork. And then you can do a turn and talk. So that's another cool assessment tool that I would use in this lesson or just in any kind of lesson. All right, so here's some goals and expectations. I'm not going to read over all of that. Let me make sure this is... Okay, and then here's the information about Andy Warhol in the presentation. So I would call on students to read out, or you could print off to make an accommodation if students don't feel comfortable reading. You could print off the slides and then have somebody close read with a partner. So this just has like a lot of really cool fun facts about Warhol, like how he began his career as a commercial artist and then how he went into pop art. And it talks all about the pop art process. It talks about how Andy Warhol likes using famous people for his artwork. It asks a critical thinking question at the end of the lesson, which is, what ordinary objects or famous person could you choose to be your pop art theme? So then we would talk about this whole pop art theme of 2018. So then sometimes, instead of Marilyn Monroe, and actually when I did this lesson this year, somebody mentioned, Nicki Minaj could be their pop art character. So, that's a cool way to take some more modern art and make it a little bit more contemporary. All right, and here's just some more examples. Then we could talk about what kind of character could you use for 2018. So Mickey Mouse was a really popular art icon, back in the day. What kind of character or cartoon theme could we carry into 2018? And the students get really excited about that. Then we also talk about advertisements, food. So somebody got an idea to do some kind of like those Taki candies that the kids like nowadays. They did their project on that, just like how Andy Warhol did the soup can. So it's really fun to see the comparisons. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about tiering. Here's an inspiration page I put up in case students can't really think of any ideas. Because the gist of this project, we're going to be creating a little, a print. They're going to be scratching and carving a print into a piece of foam and then printing it 4 times. So they only need to create the image 1 time, the printing matrix 1 time. Okay. Here's some just quick mini assessment questions. I talk about using bright colors into your project when we go to doing the printing. Okay, so here's the tiered assessment, the learning objectives. So this one talks about readiness. So tier 1 would be that they would demonstrate, identify, write, or share one thing that interests them about Andy Warhol. A tier 2 is the intermediate level, so they could demonstrate, write, and complete, and check, and reflect, and share more sketches and ideas about Andy Warhol. And then a tier 3 advanced assessment would be that they could demonstrate, write, and explain the significance of the artist. So, depending on the level of the skill, all three of those tiers are acceptable. And then we have tiered modalities. So this lesson could work for any kind of modality. So auditory, and this lesson covers all of these tiered modalities. We read the slide aloud. We could make up a rhyme or a poem about it to fit in with the auditory category. The students can say words out loud. We do a lot of call and response at my school. Another one for visual. Obviously, the students are seeing all of Andy Warhol's pictures, so that's a very visual, a visual tool that they can, use to demonstrate knowledge. And then as far as kinesthetic, I have up there role playing. The students could pretend to become the artist. They could write about the artist, take notes on the artist. Okay, here's another assessment that any teacher could use as a rubric. I kind of stepped away from using rubrics because it kind of intimidates the students a little bit. Knowing that, okay, I need to meet excellent criteria, but with rubrics, I just like to see, here's an example of what I'm looking for. So I think in the next slide I put, here's a tier 1. This one, the printing isn't quite done inside the box. It probably could be a little bit neater. Here's what I'm looking for. I prefer to show my students what I'm looking for in a picture way, so then they can try to meet that criteria. And then here I just stuck in some more assessment forms that you could use for any lesson. A formative assessment is a quick 3, 2, 1, 3 things you learned, 2 things that you like about your work, and 1 thing that you would do differently. And we used this in one of our classes, so I just took it from that. Another assessment that you could use is a summative or a quiz, which I also don't really like to do, but if worse comes to worse, you can always do a quiz. What does pop art mean? What does repetition mean? And these go over everything in the slide. What are the primary colors? What imagery did Andy Warhol not use for the subject of his work? And this also could be done in a group. You could do this whole quiz with a class. And then here's an example of a summative test. Okay, so here's my summative test. And I do test students like this once a year. So here's a pop art slide. Actually, you can zoom in a little bit. So this would be for any regular ed learner. The student would have to select the multiple choice answer. I'll be right there. This one is an accommodation for special needs. So this up here, zoom in a little bit, this gives them a little bit of a picture clue. So this is a faceless person. This is a comic character. This is a picture of a cake. This is a picture of Mickey Mouse being repeated. It's really, really small in the slide. But if you wanted to give a student with special needs the same kind of multiple choice test, and I even also put this little hint. That way the student, if they're having trouble reading or remembering or visualizing the artist, they can try to use the pictures and match. Here's another example. Of a summative version designed for learners with special needs. So again, they would match the picture hint with the actual picture. And then at the end of this lesson, or at the end of this toolbox, I put the fun energizers and brain breaks that we learned about in one of the weeks. I put a couple extra little guides using a reflective journal, doing an I Spy game, test what you know, performance test. So there's a whole bunch of other nice assessment tools that you could use. I listed my references, and then I also just stuck my children's book assignment into the end, and my children's book rubric. And I think my next class is here, so I gotta go. Bye.